Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining the Empowering and Engaging Families Utilizing the Parent Caregiver Guide for English Language Development ELD session today. This session will share best practices for family engagement. We will explore the Parent Caregiver Guide for ELD and develop activities to engage families in understanding the standards. My name is Atlee Stocks. I'm an ESL Title III consultant at NCDPI, and I'm honored to be the tech support for these amazing support team trainers, Alicia Das, lead teacher at Harner County Schools, and Dr. Tim Sims at Hickory City Schools. He is the Federal Programs Director. And they're going to share a little more details about themselves. So thank you again for joining us today. And I have started the recording, and I invite Alicia and Tim to lead the session now.
So welcome. I'm Tim Sims. I'm Director of Federal Programs for Hickory Public Schools. I have been involved in the education of English learners for over 30 years. I have had the opportunity to serve on the EL support team since it began, and it has been a great opportunity for me. And my reason for becoming an educator, it was to change the lives of our students in a positive way. And that really keeps me focused in what we do. And I'm excited to spend this time with you. Alicia?
I'm unmuted now. Sorry. The fun begins. I am also very excited to be on we call it the Sotley crew instead of the Motley crew, with Sotley and Tim. I am Alicia Dawes. I'm an ESL teacher for Harnett County Schools, K-12. I've been in Harnett County Schools as an educator like Tim for over 30 years. Love it now more than even then. I've also served on the EL support team since its inception. And one thing, like Tim, I have passions, and one of them is finding out-of-the-box strategies for the academic challenges of our multilingual learners, their families, our educators. And that's one of the reasons I love the Growing Success for ELS conference, because you have an opportunity to collaborate, like some of you are mentioning in the chat box, and step outside of your, vision of what our MLs need. So we're excited to be here today.
And now we want to spend a little bit more time getting to know more about you. So today's session is dedicated to ESL teachers. Thanks so much for sharing your details with us in the chat so we can know you a little bit better and address your specific needs as ESL teachers in the field. We will share a few of your comments, and we'd like for a few of you to open your mics and share your thoughts as well. As we are reading the chat comments, raise your hand if you are interested in sharing your response with the group, and we will ask you to open your mics in just a few minutes. Satley and Alicia, I will ask you to help me if you see anything you're ready to share.
I did see one from India. I'm trying to find it now. I might not be able to. I'm not as good at this as you are, Tim. But there is one from Jillian McClam. She's a K-5 elementary ESL teacher in Sampson County. And one thing that she wants to walk away with today is new ideas, because it's not often that you get to collaborate with so many people. So a lot like what we were talking about earlier.
And I did find India's comment, and she's wanting to learn how to be more effective and engage and stay in communication with parents in ways that are best for teachers, students, and parents. And we will talk some about that today.
Yeah, I'm seeing mostly, names, which is great to know. The people in the audience, because maybe we'll call you by name at one point. And
many of you are familiar, which is exciting.
Yes, and I'm seeing a K-12 span of ESL teachers. I haven't seen any outliers of anyone other than ESL teachers, so that's really cool.
I see somebody from Harnett County, your stomping grounds.
Yes, and one thing let's see, Abigail wants to learn. She's from Highlands School, Macon County Schools. One thing she wants to walk away with today is a renewed energy for increasing engagement. That is one of my passions, because COVID safety decreased opportunities for engagement at our school. And our day today is virtual. We hope it's going to be engaging, but we feel what you're describing there, definitely. Thanks for sharing.
I am going to call out Crystal if she wouldn't mind unmuting and introducing herself or share what you were going to share or what you're interested in today. I see your hand up,
Yeah,
so.
sure. Thank you. This is a different platform that I'm used to using, so I probably raised my hand like 5 times. I didn't mean to do that.
Okay.
Yes, I teach ESL for Johnston County, and I saw somebody else roll up through here who's from Johnston County as well. I just started in this position middle of February, so in the middle of access testing is when I took over this position. And I teach K-5 at my face-to-face school, and then I teach K-12 virtually for our virtual academy in Johnston County. So I have a lot of different student needs that need to be met. And I found that middle and high school needs are very different than elementary. I've been an elementary teacher. I've been in elementary education since 2006. So I'm used to the K-5. So coming in and learning the middle and high school and what those student needs are, that's been a little bit different. But I'm really excited. One thing sometimes I have felt, this is what I said I wanted to walk away with, is just for me, as a new learner in this, to feel a little bit more comfortable in really creating those parent teacher teams. One of my strengths is building relationships with people. However, sometimes the language barriers and other things, because I'm not multilingual myself, I kind of tell you, unless they recognize sarcasm as a second language, I don't speak a second language. So there's sometimes that, like I told my people, I said, you don't get to double dip. Like I don't get to do both. So I want to really feel confident and be able to bring something to the table for for the parents and my students. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Crystal.
Mhm.
I see a lot
All
of
right.
comments. Do you want to continue or we share the chat later?
We can share a couple more, and then we will be saving onto the chat as well.
You go ahead with one that you see.
Perfect. I see Kelly Land from Lincoln County Schools. One thing I want to walk away from today is how to include families more in their child's education, because this has been a difficulty. So that's great. And yes, Tim was saying we're going to share the chat so you can see all the different comments later. So we apologize if we don't have time to read all of those, but we know that we are checking them.
And I'm going to go back 2 slides real quick if I can, because I just want to show the WebEx controls. If you look at the bottom of the screen, is where you'll find out how to mute, unmute, share your video or not share your video. There is a raise your hand and or lower your hand, and then how to share reactions. So if we're going too slow, you can tell us. And chat is over on the right-hand side. So I just wanted to go back over those. And then I want to say thank you so much for being with us today. We appreciate all that you do, and we hope you walk away with valuable information.
We are very excited. So we want to make sure that you have all of the tabs open that you need right from the get-go. But if you aren't following along right now, we're going to have convenience on every slide where you'll be able to follow along with us. But the empowering and engaging ML Families resources can be found first if you check your email. You received an email this morning from Zotli if you were registered, and it has all of the links in there. Also, you can find the links in the Empowering and Engaging Families presentation, which is what we're sharing with you right now. So if you want the PowerPoint or the presentation for today, just go to bit.ly/Engage Families Day 2 with first letters capitalized. That's today's session. And once you go to the slide that we're on, you can click there for your materials. Zotli is also going to put the presentation link in the chat box because that'll be your access to everything that you need today. Today's documents will be linked on our slides. You're going to be seeing icons in the bottom right corners. One will be for your artifact. Every session has an artifact, so does ours. So the A will be your icon for that. If you click the A, it should take you straight to your ESL teacher artifact. There's also one for our Padlet that we're going to be sharing where you're going to get lots of ideas today, and you can take that back with you. And there's also a link for a little icon for the parent caregiver guide, which we're going to be exploring together a little bit later. And then one other way that you could get to our materials for today is your conference notebook. If you were here yesterday, you need to go ahead and open the URL that you created yesterday. But some of you are new today, and we respect that. So we're going to guide you through, just like everybody got yesterday, a little guidance on your notebooks. Lee is also going to post a link for, it's a forced copy. The notebook is a forced copy, so you can personalize it. So Lee's going to put those links in the chat as well. For those of you that are hopping around, there's going to be a notebook link. And then for ESL teachers, there will be a link for the notebook there for you. So we're going to give everybody a little bit of time to open their notebooks, just so you have that open as one of your tabs for today. And if you would like, you can go ahead and open your artifact, your Padlet, and the parent guide. But if you don't, wait, and we'll get to that in a little bit. So now Tim's going to help us navigate through our notebook. We're going to explain it just a little bit. The first page or so is your tips for how to use your notebook, and it will give you directions for your session's artifact and how to add it in your notebook on its corresponding page, how to add comments, links, images, screenshots. Some of you were making comments yesterday, at least not you guys, but in our session, about how much they loved the notebooks, and we're very appreciative to DPI for providing those. There's also, Tim, if you will, let's see, click to the next page. There's an artifact page. Our page is, I believe, 11. I'm not sure, in your ESL teacher notebook, but this is where we're going to describe later where you'll put your artifact. Next, Tim. We have opportunities for you to share your artifacts that you create today too. We would love for you to follow the directions on page 6 for sharing your artifacts in 2 groups that are found in the hashtag GoOpenNC. You can find the details there. If you'll take us to the next page, Tim. You'll also find a place where you can take notes when you come to the daily office hour. For us today, for example, if we give you information, you can post it there in your notebook to remember. Every day there's an office hour. We're going to give you that link later. Tim, your annotation tools are found in your notebook, and if you'll click again, Tim, you'll have stickers, tabs, little things that you can put in your notebook to personalize it and remember better. And then finally, if you, Tim, if you'll click, if you have any questions about your notebook or any of our materials, Lee's going to keep a close watch on our chat box, and we can answer your questions there. Hopefully, everyone has had time to at least open the PowerPoint presentation for today and your notebook.
Here are our fundamentals for today's session. We want you to feel free to contribute your ideas, questions, and ponderings via the chat box, raise a hand or mic, Padlet, artifact document, and/or breakout group. We want there will be icons on your slides for indicating opportunities to share by chat box, raise your hand, open mic, use your Padlet, or add to your artifact document, or share via breakout groups. We also want you to acknowledge the benefits of family engagement and examine its challenges by seeking solutions. We want you to create an artifact that will allow us an opportunity to apply and remember what we learn. The A icon will be linked to your forced copy of the artifact, but you don't want to keep opening that A icon if you already have a artifact notebook or artifact started, because you'll just keep making copies. And I can tell you that from experience. And then we want you to take advantage of the conference office hours from 3:30 to 4:30. It was a little lonely yesterday afternoon, I must say, but it gave Alicia and I a good time to catch up. The office hour is linked here for you, and you can also find it in your registration flyer.
And then when Tim and I work together, we've been working together for many years. We always love to have a hidden agenda. So our hidden agenda for today is that you come to this session prepared to relax, release, and rejuvenate yourselves. It's summertime, and like someone mentioned earlier, COVID has really made the past 2.5, 3 years pretty difficult. So we're here to be your supporters, your counselors, your advisors, and yes, even your therapists, if that's what we can do for you today. And we also want to have you to share the love and hope that you will share the good news from all that you learned today and this week with each other and other colleagues in the state by tweeting anything that you learn, any good information or resources, hashtag NCELD22. And finally, it is in our hidden agenda that you receive our thank you, because we are so grateful to have this opportunity to collaborate with you today. And at the end, we're going to share a few door prizes that we hope will help you in your pursuits as educators of MLs, their families, and your colleagues.
All right. And now to understand our purpose for today. Our purpose today is to make sure we collaborate to find ways to empower and engage every family. Our purpose is grounded in the research and work of Dr. Stephen Constantino. Yeah, that's going fast. Whom we'll get to know a little bit later. During this session, we will explore the Parent Caregiver Guide for ELD to discover its contents and potential support in engaging every multilingual learner or ML family. Many of you probably already know that NCDPI has made a shift from the use of English learner to multilingual learner. NCDPI will be using the asset-based term to avoid labeling students in terms of a language that they are learning, to acknowledge that students' first languages and cultures are a strength, and to reiterate the importance of literacy and proficiency in multiple language. For policy and legislation purposes, NCDPI will maintain the term English learners. For all other purposes, NCDPI will begin to use multilingual learner. NCDPI has shared a letter regarding this shift in language to help school districts start conversations around this asset-based language. We have linked it at the bottom of this slide. Just go to https://bit.ly/signed capital S letter capital L for the number 4 PSUs, or you will see the terms used. You will see both terms used in the ELD standards document this week. Zali, will you please share? Oh, already done. We will also engage in we will also reflect on Dr. Constantino's 5 simple principles to engage every family. And we'll give you time to develop strategies using the 5 principles and the information and resources found in the Parent Caregiver Guide. Strategies that will allow you to engage every ML family in the academic life of their child.
And to help us in achieving our purpose for today, we want to explain the significance of the words that we've chosen, engage every family. And it kind of addresses another shift that we have seen in education, the shift from parent involvement to family engagement. And we know that parent has always implied only those in like a leadership role or who has responsibility over the students that we serve, as in mother or father, guardian or caregiver. But we know that many students have home environments where in some cases there is only like multiple combinations of those exist, or they simply just don't exist at all. So if we're only focusing on the one or the two or the few people in the lives of our students, we're just not using all the resources available to us to support our students. So then thus the shift to family, because family includes parents, guardians, caregivers, whomever they may be, but it also is an extension beyond. It's beyond the parental figures like brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, grandparents, community members who serve a family, like coaches or pastors. And it's in some cases that those people have more of an influence over our students. They know more about the students, and they may even in some cases care more for these students. And we want today to, like again, we've said before, step outside of the box and think about ways we can expand beyond parent, including them to family and even community. And then there's another term that we are focusing on. We're going from involvement to engagement. Involvement implies us doing things for or to our families and our students, like inviting them to a meeting. We provide food, we give them a flyer or some information. But engagement implies doing with families, like having parents or family members actually plan events with us. We've been doing more of that in our county, and we've even seen fathers cry because they're feeling themselves in the school building now, and they're seeing with their own eyes that their students are, their student is having success. But it's asking our students, family and or community members even, to participate with us in volunteering, leading activities, sharing their culture expertise, for example. So we want you to be on the same page with us when we say engage every family. Those are the terms that we're going to be using today. And of course, the word every implies all, not some, not just those who come or call or ask questions, but the families of all our EL and ML students that are challenges maybe or find themselves in a challenge. It implies more effort on our part to initiate those relationships and include every member in very creative ways, and to give respect to the families. They're not showing up or they're not participating or turning in a piece of paper is an asset in some cases because of the challenges that they are facing. They are performing miracles in their daily lives, and we need to respect that. Just because they're not there doesn't mean they're not there for some really good reasons. So throughout our session today, we'll be reflecting on our current and future strategies for engaging every family. And we'll be focusing on affirming you in all the strategies that you are currently using, and we hope you'll learn something new.
So I would like to say that we are intentionally approaching this from an asset-based approach. And so one of the things we took into consideration, we talked a lot about as we were developing this, was the idea of Louis Moats brings the idea of funds of knowledge, recognizing that all of our children bring a wealth of knowledge to us, and it's our opportunity to recognize it and see that. So just kind of, that's a kind of a fundamental idea we bring to this discussion. And we're going to start today by reflecting on 3 questions. What do we, as a school community, receive if we engage every family? What do our families receive if we engage every family? So what are the benefits to us as a school system? What are our benefits to them? And then let's think about what our current strategies for engaging every family are.
And we are actually going to open up our artifact now, because this is going to be our artifact from beginning of our session to the end. It's going to be on reflecting and gaining information from these 3 questions. So we'd like for you to open your artifact document now so that that we can start reflecting together, and you can get to the artifact document via your conference notebook by going to page 11 and clicking at the top of that page. Or you can click on the link displayed here from your PowerPoint if your PowerPoint is open, or you can simply type it in, and open a tab with that shortened URL, bit.ly/ all lowercase parent guide artifact. Or you can create a forced copy of your artifact document by clicking on the icon in the bottom right corner. The artifact document, just a reminder, is going to open as a forced copy. So Tim, if you'll take us into the artifact, we'll do a little demonstration with that just so everyone is literally on the same page. You'll notice it opens as a forced copy, just like your notebook. You're going to click copy or make a copy.
Maybe.
If it works. That is ridiculous.
Come on.
Okay, we can pretend like he made a copy, but we did want to show you what the document looks like. I don't know why it's freezing up like that. That is weird. There we go. Nope, that's not it. Try again. And it looks like you're spinning, so that might be it. It might be your internet.
Okay. Well, let's not play with that because I don't want to lose.
That's right. We're going to pretend. So the document that you see open on your screen, it's got three blue blue bars. That is what you should be opening. And we want you to, Tim was going to model just in the title of your document. If you can put your name, and there's a place where it has a parentheses in the title, just put your name and ESL teacher session. And there it is. And he's doing it for us. So Tim, and put ESL teachers artifact. And then this is extremely important. Go ahead and copy the URL for the document that you just created. So Tim's going to go up. He's going to make a copy of the long URL of his document. And once he gets that copied, he's going to go back into his pretend notebook and click. There's the URL that he pasted. Okay, and if you'll click again, Tim, for some reason that's really slow too. So you're going to insert your artifact link now. That's how you get back to your personalized copy of your Empowering and Engaging Families artifact. And this is where you can come back later and share that link with us. If you would now, you can, in your share at the top, you can put our emails in there and share those documents with us so we can see your reflection. But you can also share with others in the two groups that were shared earlier in #GoOpenNC. So we're going to give everybody, as Tim transitions to the next slide, we're going to give you time to make sure you're all in your artifact, and Satli will look for questions in the chat box if you can't get there. Okay, Tim. So here, here we begin our reflection time. Okay, are we there? Yep, that's it, Tim, right there. So for the next 3 minutes, we're going to have silence as you reflect and answer the pre-reflection questions at the top of your artifact document. If we engage every family, what do we receive? What do they receive? And what are your current strategies for actually attempting to engage every ML family? So write your responses as you reflect in the pre-reflection section only. We're going to do this again at the end of the day together. And then when you finish, share one thought in the chat box, if you would, please, because we're going to copy the chat box for everybody to see at the end of the day. And be prepared to raise your hand or open your mic during our share out. So 3 minutes for everybody as you reflect. Tim and I are reflecting with you.
And give it a minute. Satli thinks we crashed Google because we have 90 people clicking at the same time on one document.
Okay. We'll give everybody about 30 seconds to finish up your thoughts. Okay, as we transition over to Tim for the share out, just finish up your thoughts and maybe put a comment or two in the chat box as we discuss, and be ready to raise your hand.
So now we're ready to share out and hear some of your comments from the chat box, and hopefully some of you will raise your hands. So if you don't mind, and we'll be looking. Zadley, would you help us look through the participants in case people have raised their hands?
Yes. We have one participant, Mariel Gomez de la Torre. You can unmute Mariel and share.
What I put is families participating and engaging in our students. It helps us for them to be part of the school, and that helped the students to get more involved in their own education. So I think that is very important. And so how do I do it? Do I go up to there, or does it only the first square?
You can do whichever you're fine.
So how do I do it? Every month I use the Zoom, and I provide different times, like early in the morning, in the middle of the day, at night. And so the parents can choose. I choose an English version and a Spanish version, as I'm bilingual. And so that gives them the possibility that depending on what time they work, they can come. And I give different type of things that I think that it will be helpful for them, and that way I have 100% of participations in my meetings. And I also offer one time a week English classes for free, and I tell them as nobody pay me, the only payment is that they have to come to class, and so they feel that they have to come, and that has been successful for me.
Awesome, thank you.
Great ideas, friend. Great ideas.
This happened yesterday too, and it warms my heart as an educator. You know, a lot of what people are focused on are really what we receive, right? Like we receive more open communication and collaboration. We receive we receive powerful community resources that can affirm our students. There's helps us meet our goals, which may or may not be the same as the families, and it helps them meet their goals. We receive trust. I mean, I just love these ideas. And I do think it's really important that we really think about what we are getting from this, if we're going to put the time and energy into it.
And Shweta said that she gets a sense of purpose. I thought that was pretty powerful as well. A sense of purpose.
All right. We want you to use these questions to guide your thinking throughout the session today, and be prepared to reflect on these questions again at the end. We will now start to explore the Parent Caregiver Guide for English Language Development. We will take a look at its purpose, how it's organized, and give you time to explore the guide so that you can begin to brainstorm its various uses, possible audiences, and any questions that you may have.
And to start, you're going to open tab number 3, I think, by clicking on the Parent Caregiver Guide for ELD. It's the shortened URL at the top. It's also, just so you know, located with your other ELD documents in the ELD Standards Hub. Maybe you were shown that yesterday. But you would just scroll down to the bottom of the ELD Standards Hub page, and you'll see the Parent Caregiver Guide icon. Click on that, and it'll open up to its page in the hub. And then you can also click on the icon for the Parent Caregiver Guide in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. We're going to give everybody a few seconds to get there. We just want you to have it open. Please put your questions in the chat box if you're having difficulty doing that. It's also in the email that Zotli sent this morning.
And she also has posted the links in the chat box.
Yes, and I was supposed to tell her to do that, but I didn't. But thank you, Zotli. So hopefully everyone is in your parent guide. And Tim, if you would, for a quick second, just click on the guide and maybe show everyone what that looks like, unless you were doing it, because I could not see that screen. So
Yes, it's open.
okay, thank you. So this is the guide that you will be going through. I'm being very careful not to close my screens. I've got too many open. So before we release you to actually, look inside of your guide, there's a little intro in the beginning. We wanted to tell you how it's organized so that you know its purpose and its organization. In the front of the parent caregiver guide, you'll find the purpose of the document, and it's going to answer the question, how did we get here? So it's explaining to parents, why was this document created? It gives parents a quick overview of the state's process of adopting the ELD standards, and it explains that the guide was developed in an effort to empower families and engage them in the academic life of their multilingual learner. And it will also help them understand the K-12 identification process, the ELD standards, the instructional supports, and even resources. So section 1, the first question that the guide will answer is, what does it mean that my child is an English learner? This section will explain the ELD identification process. Notice that in the guide on page 3, if you are there, EL is used instead of multilingual learner in most of the document. But remember, these terms are interchangeable, and both terms are actually defined for the parents on page 3 if you want to make a note of that. Section 2 is going to answer the question, how does my child learn English at school? And it's going to actually describe the ELD standards and their little bits and pieces, the ESL services, and also instructional supports that we are providing for our students, not county specific, but state specific. And then section 3 is going to answer the question, how do I help my child succeed at school? It's going to provide strategies, resources, and supports that empower our families, and hopefully will keep them engaged in their child's educational realm. We're going to actually take some time. This is going to be a big chunk of our day-to-day together to dig deep and explore each section of the guide. We're going to give you ample time to think as you explore. We're going to guide your thinking. You're going to be able to ask questions. And most importantly, you're going to brainstorm ideas with each other on how we might empower and engage our ML families. So we're going to explore one section of the guide at a time, and this is how we're going to guide your thinking. We want you to think about how each section is organized, how it answers the section's question, and in what ways and with whom you can use and share the section information to empower and engage. So you'll be sharing or writing your ideas in the Padlet. We're going to get to that in just a quick second. We'll guide you there in a little bit, but you'll be listing and any of your brainstorms about ways we can use only that section that we're on and with whom we should be sharing that information. We want you to think outside of the box again. That's our big behind the scenes goal for today, is just to think outside of the box. There'll also be a column for you to put your questions. All right. So this is what we're getting ready to do, explore, and we're going to start by taking you to your Padlet tab. You're probably already there, but in case you're not, click on the bit.ly at the top, which is bit.ly/Padlet, the number 4, ESL teachers, all lowercase, or you can click on the Padlet icon in the bottom right corner. And you're going
It's
to
also in the chat. Thank you, Satli.
In the chat, because I was supposed to tell Satli to put it there. Yes. And when you go into your Padlet, we don't want you to jump ahead sections. We want you to go section by section with us as we guide you. So section 1, you're going to have a column for your ideas about ways and with whom to share the information. And then column 2 would be your questions. And again, we're going to do that together. Wait for us to guide you. We just want to make sure you have all of your documents open. So Tim, if you agree with me, we believe everybody has their parent guide open, their Padlet open, and we are ready to explore. You feel it?
So just a reminder, we're staying in the left, for this section, we're staying in the left two boxes.
That's right.
So
Under section
although you're
1,
thinking out of the box, you're going to put your answer in the box.
in the one we tell you to. Okay. Thank you, Tim. So to give you a little overview of section 1 again, you're going to be thinking, how does this section answer the question, what does it mean that my child is an English learner? And you're going to be looking at information related to the identification process, exit criteria, the assessment, EL status identifications, and ESL services. Okay, so I think we're ready to explore. Tim, if you'll click to the next slide, remember to think about how it's organized. Does it answer the question, and in what ways and with whom you can use it? And if you'll brainstorm those, column 1 for your ideas and column 2. If you have questions about the section, they might actually help us revise the guide and publish it, publish all of your ideas too in the guide. Thank you. About 3 to 5 minutes is how much we'll give you. Thanks. Tim and I are also exploring with you because every time we explore, we find something new, but we're going to keep an eye on the chat box as well. If you do have an immediate question, just let us know. We'll give everybody about 1 more minute. Be thinking of any questions you have and with whom and what ways we can share. All right, we're going to bring everybody back.
All right. So as we come back together and share what you've learned or have questions about while you're exploring, we're going to be reading some of your responses from Padlet and looking out for raised hands that we might have time to recognize. While we're getting ready for the share out, did you notice,
And you click the slide yet, Tim? Sorry.
Did you notice the graphics, the colorful self-explanatory icons, and how they were repeated on the other pages for consistency and supports for understanding the information? Also the charts, the amount of white space, and even the limited talk of these. All of these designs were intentionally incorporated for ease of use and understanding. Also, we hope you had time to notice that this section covers the EL identification process from enrollment to exit. There is mention of the new term multilingual learner on the top of page 3 and a note about the new case screener on the bottom of page 4. It even includes details about declining services, not identification. The guide also describes the calculating process and exit measures.
Yep. And I believe the next slide, Tim, is now, an opportunity for you guys to actually share out. You can open a mic. We're reading some of your chat comments. But as an ESL teacher, what were you thinking? Is there something new that you learned for the first time in some of this information because it was finally like explained well, even visually? You notice how at the state level, we chose ESL strategies to actually create the guide to make it understandable and memorable. So if anybody, exactly, if you see a hand or anybody,
I'm seeing some great suggestions as far as using it with on enrollment or in kindergarten enrollment to share the guide with staff at the school who do enrollment or like such as counselors. Also, I see some great ideas about sharing it with staff members like administrators. And I think this is this could be used to do a little subtle behind the scenes professional development for our colleagues, to learn a little bit more about the process so that they understand it. Some of the questions I've seen are, it needs to be translated, which you will be happy to know it is coming out in Spanish very soon. That is the only language DPI is going to be translating, but there has been discussions among some of the districts about potentially sharing other people translating and sharing resources they have from their district.
And even recording it live, like a screencast or whatever in multiple languages, not just in writing. There was one question about the jargon. Would other educators understand some of the jargon? There's actually a glossary that accompanies it. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. And Satli wanted you to address the language in, as you did yesterday, Tim, how, the language that was chosen, it wasn't watered down, but it was.
Yeah, so one of the challenges we had as we worked on this document was, we wanted to respect parents and understand that our parents fit the full spectrum. So we wanted to empower parents to have the full breadth of knowledge as possible, of policy and procedure, but we also needed to make it simplified enough so that, it was easy for parents to understand. And so that was kind of a challenge of trying to hit the sweet spot. There may be places people have recommendations that we do it. We make revisions, and this is a living document that we will revise. I believe there's already a revision, the revision coming out about the new screener. So it is something that will be.
And there's a note of that on page 4 of the document too, about the kindergarten screener. But also, can you imagine as an ESL teacher carrying this around with you everywhere? If a teacher has a question, you can open to a page and you have your talking points right there. You've got a visual guide, to model and show them. So we hope that not only are our parents feeling empowered, but that you're feeling more empowered to have this information at your fingertips. We're very excited. It's the first time in the history of North Carolina education, I think, that we've had a guide for families that I'm aware of, and I've been here for 32 years. Anybody want to raise a hand and share out? Because we're family. We want you to be relaxed and feel like you can. I was just curious if you thought of any other audiences other than the ones that we had listed on the screen. But obviously, anyone can be empowered by this information, and it's going to support our ELDs.
I just feel like saying one thing, and that is like, I know it's very detailed. I know it's very step by step explained, and it's like a self-understanding guide. I feel that I could take some of this information, of course, with another EL teacher, and we could create like a PowerPoint and use this information to educate and establish an understanding at the school level and the district level with our families and content teachers and other stakeholders.
That's what we hoped you would say. Absolutely. And there was a question that was just posted and I lost it. The new
Yes.
the new kindergarten screener. There is a new screener put out by WIDA starting next semester. Maybe in schools now too. I'm not sure. Tim, did you want to say anything else about that?
No, I don't want to get sidetracked on that. So
But
that's
it is new.
and we can talk about that in office hours if anybody's interested. But I want to kind of stick to our purpose today.
We're ready for section 2 if you guys are. And
Give me a
always
second because there's a couple of things that popped up that I want to respond to. Somebody said they love this for an IEP, which is great. Somebody asked if they could post it to their website. Yes, you may post this to your website. What I would recommend is that you post the link to DPI's posting of the site, because what they plan to do is to continuously update this. So if you post the link to their website, when they update the document, you'll have a link to the new updated document.
If you use the link in our icon, it should take you to the page that it will always be housed on. Lee was giving us advice on that yesterday.
All right.
So section 2, Tim.
I know I've got to turn my page notes. Section 2 is going to answer the question, how does my child learn English at school? You'll see an introduction with an explanation of ESL services. The section then describes the ELD standards, explaining the ELD standard statements, key language uses, and language expectations. The ELD standard information may be new to you as well, so it'll be interesting to see if the guide is helpful in your understanding of the standards. There's an example of ELD standard provided, and you'll be able to see the proficiency level descriptors explained here too.
Yeah, exciting stuff. So you're ready to explore again. Okay, so make sure your tab is still open with your Padlet. Your tab is still open with your parent guide. And if not, you can click on the icons. We're going to give you about 3 to 5 minutes. We're going to lean toward the 5 for you to really think through this section. How is it organized? How is it answering the question? And in what ways and with whom you can actually use this information? You may think of some new people because of the information that's shared here. While you're exploring, please make sure to write your ideas and questions under the appropriate Section 2 columns. Section 2 ideas and Section 2 questions. And you may begin your exploring now. We'll be exploring with you. some people, the page is unresponsive. If you're having technical difficulties, we apologize. Try to go back into the document. We're going to give everybody another minute to, again, try to get back into the document, finish out your thoughts. Please complete your, add to the chat box any of your ideas and the Padlet. Put a thought in the chat box, a thought or two, so that we can all see what you're thinking there too. Tim, anything else you can think of for our last minute? And you're muted.
Let's give them just give them the time to finish going through.
Looks like we crashed Padlet too. Some participants are having difficulties. Guys, if you want to add your comments in the chat, please do it, and we will make sure to transfer them to the Padlet.
All right, while we get ready for our share out, did you notice graphics come from straight from the ELD standards documents with clear and precise definitions, so parents, colleagues, and community members are able to see and hear the information in language of the standards just as multilingual educators are. And you were right in your share out. The section starts on page 9 by answering the question with an explanation of the Language Instruction Educational Program, or LIEP, and how the LIEP team helps determine the types of services for MLs that are eligible for it, and then explains the EL plan and pull out and push in sessions. I totally missed that.
Alicia, you're muted.
Thank you. I recognize that voice as Jean. I hope that was my Jean. But anyway, so we're seeing that some of you were able to get onto the Padlet, which is great. For section 2, the LIEP states push in and pull out. Is there an explanation for bilingual education? We had that come up yesterday too. And that's a technicality because dual immersion or dual language is not always necessarily EL in every county. So it would be, how is that dual language class or that bilingual class? Is it a push in or is it a pull out? So looks like the state is choosing those two categories, and then everything else would fall under that. Tim, did you want to address that in any other way? And then we are noticing that all of you agree that it's a great resource. It has the visuals, the explanation. It's only a couple of pages. You'll have it right there in your hand. We've thought, like you have in your comments, staff meetings, PDs, enrollment, if this is a part of the enrollment package or the enrollment procedures in your county, having it up on your county website. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. IEP meetings, but also ways to share it with the community so they're more informed about who our English learners are, if you have opportunities to do that. Tim or Satli, are you seeing?
So I'm just, as I'm looking through, I see quite a few people who have a concern about the amount of information we're sharing with parents. And, I just I hope you'll understand when we look at parents from an asset-based approach, yes, some of this may be challenging for some of our parents. And so we have to think about how we can share it, in what meaningful ways we can share it. And I've seen great ideas like parent nights and simplifying some program, simplifying some presentations and whatnot to help parents walk through this, maybe doing it over a series of events. But I also want to say, I think it's also we need to be careful about our limiting parents' access to the information about that is directly pertaining to their children's education. I think we have to be careful about assuming parents don't want information or don't want to understand it. And we also have to recognize that, we have, at least in my system, we have English learner parents who are professionals. I mean, they have doctoral degrees or MDs, and it's important for us to make sure that we are empowering our parents and giving them the ability to make informed decisions about their children. I also understand.
Sorry, Tim. Sorry. Azatli was saying in the chat box, she agrees that chunking the information, even for our ESL teachers in our county, we're not going to learn all of this in 1 year or 1 month. It's a little bit over time, but at least they'll have all of the information there to be used as needed.
And so I don't want to be on a soapbox but I just think it's very carefully, do I want to limit what information I provide to parents? So, and that's my own personal thought. As a parent, I would not want people deciding what I should know and what I shouldn't know.
But the affirming the overwhelmedness, absolutely, because even for our staff,
Absolutely.
we're not going to train everything in a day. We're going to take it a little bit at a time. Totally agree.
And the information is overwhelming to us as we learn it, right? So.
Totally.
Correct. And creating the guide was a challenge until we finally got the feedback from the reviewers where they said, yes, this is what we need, and this is the information that we should put in the guide. And what Tim is being saying, they have the right to know. So if it's our job to help them understand, and all the ideas that you have shared in the chat, just dividing the sections, creating video clips, talking to the different stakeholders, those pieces help you build that capacity so parents can understand what is it that it means for their child to be identified as an English learner, and they are now going to be in this program with these services. So, yeah.
Someone just said, practice our craft. We've got to practice our craft. And for the first time ever, look at how we're all on the same page about all the things that are in the guide. And there's a way to communicate that now with staff and with our families. So I think that's pretty powerful. So if nothing else, Tim, I think we're ready to explore section 3. All right. And section 3 is going to answer the question, how do I help my child succeed at school? It's basically just full of strategies and resources for families to stay engaged in the academic life of their child. And the first part of the section, it provides suggestions and activities to support reading and writing. Very specific. It might feel a little bit elementary, but it's really for K-12, especially those that might be novice learners. Then the next part is going to offer up online resources to help families advocate for their child. And then finally, it's going to provide online resources to help their child succeed in school. Please take about 3 to 4 minutes. You can click on links. You can investigate websites or all the resources that are there. We hope you will take the next 3 minutes to explore. Okay, we'll give everybody about another minute. Okay, finish out your final thoughts and please share a few in the chat box. Also in the Padlet if you're still able to access it. So we hope you had plenty of time to look at some of the links and resources in section 3. We hope you were able to figure out, how it was organized. Is it answering that question? And now we would love to hear from you. What are your thoughts about whom can we share this with, and how can we use it? Or any of your ideas. Some of your ideas here are just amazing in the Padlet. Some of you said it's your favorite section. You can't wait to share this with families. Some of you are going to put some of those resources that are in the guidelines on your own websites, which is a really great idea too. Tim or Satli, have you seen any?
So I saw a question about, are these resources free and open to the public? They were at the time we found them.
That's right.
So yes. I also saw a couple of really good points about native language, and I do think that's an opportunity for the next revision, is to support parents in improving the native language as a strategy for improving English, or for improving overall education.
And Tim, there was a great question, why only reading and writing strategies? To be honest, it could have been time constraints, to be very honest, with putting the guideline out. But most importantly, I know it was a focus on the literacy and the biliteracy, but there's always the future. And because of your comment, that's something that the EL support team is going to be discussing with our consultants. So thank you for that. And Satli, I don't know if you have anything to address that with as well. Anybody want to open a mic? Okay, Tim, if you'll click to the next slide, and we'll just talk through some of our points that we thought of. Staff meetings, the IEP meetings again, posted on your school or county website. We want you to be sharing this information with your administrators, with your specialists in your building, with your, of course, your PTOs or parent organizations and communities. And if there are no other questions that we need to address right now, Tim, there are a couple about specific to the reading strategies. But you have actually successfully explored the Parent Caregiver Guide. And we hope that you feel more empowered and engaged in the process of helping our families feel the same. We also want to bring your attention to some supports for the Parent Caregiver Guide that we've actually mentioned earlier. Tim, if you'll click on the glossary, there's an ESL Title III and ELD Standards glossary of terms that support all of the new ELD standards documents. So the EL support team members and consultants and other educators across North Carolina came together to create this glossary of terms. This is something that you're going to want all of your educators in your PSU to have access to. Whenever they have a doubt, they can come here and figure out the jargon, as someone shared earlier. So this is your jargon resource. If there are any questions about that, just let us know. And then back to the slides, another support is going to be your translation apps. I'm not going to be able to learn Japanese or Chinese, nor are some of our families going to be able to learn English in a short period of time. So we are really relying heavily on these translation apps to communicate, to be on the same page, and to empower them with information. You're going to want to, share with your families written and audio translation apps, but also the scan and translate apps are very good. They can scan the document, the guide, and it will translate into their language immediately. Google Translate app does that. There's also a scan and translate app that does that. So we would like for you to now put in any of the translation apps or like talking points, any devices or apps that you use for sharing with families. Can you just list those in the chat and let us know how you know they're good? And again, we're going to copy the chat and share it with everyone. Sutley's going to do that for us. As we've mentioned before, you can post this to your county and school website. You can create screencasts or videos using the first languages of many of your students. And there will be translations of this in the future. So if you'll just keep sharing those app suggestions in the chat box, that would be great. Any final comments or questions, Sutley or Tim or anybody in the audience?
So we always give the little kind of, we recognize that under the Office of Civil Rights, the school district's obligation is to provide translation and interpretation for families where, what's the word they use? Practicable is, I think, the legal term.
Yep.
And so we recognize that. But what we want to talk, what we're talking about here is we have opportunities where our parents are trying to engage where there is nobody available, or maybe there's nobody who speaks that language in your school. And so we're suggesting that there are enough resources out there that we can hopefully access parents in ways, so that we are getting our point across.
Can you oh, sorry. Go ahead. Keep going. I thought you had stopped. I have a delay probably, but if you could click on the sample real quick of the website, just really quick, 2 seconds. This is a sample template of a website that you can use. And at the top, you could put directions for translating the page, translation apps, how they can search the site. You can have a section where they have quick links, and the county resources, the ESL online resources and parent caregiver resources would click to that part of the page, but that's where you can post the parent caregiver guide, a portal for kids to see their grades, and et cetera, et cetera. We just kind of created a dummy site or found a template that we thought might work for you. And there are some actual links that work that'll take you to some state guides. So we hope you find that this helpful. It's actually one of our door prizes for today, a sample website. All right. Thank you guys for all your ideas too.
Now we'll take a time to look at research around engaging every family. Alicia, this is you.
Oh, sorry. I was getting ready for our next session. So we are going, our goals are for this activity, it's going to be our post-reflection. We're going to dig deeper into best practices for family engagement with Tim and Dr. Constantino. We're going to take time to post-reflect on your 3 questions for the day, personal reflection and group reflection. And you will have ample time to discuss strategies for engaging every ML family using 5 simple principles and the information and resources found in the Parent Caregiver Guide. So we're excited.
All right. So now that you've had time to explore the Parent Caregiver Guide, we have a chance to think about our audiences and possible uses. We want to take some time to look at current family engagement research. We're going to use this research to further explore the Parent Caregiver Guide and how it might help us to live out these best practices and plan effective engagement strategies and activities that support our multilingual families and students in not only understanding the new ELD standards, but also in helping them have voices and choices by being engaged in their academic success. The research we focus on today is that of Dr. Stephen Constantino, Dr. Constantino was serving students as a high school principal when he discovered research about the effects of family engagement on student learning and became convinced that this was the missing ingredient in helping all children learn. Since then, he has moved through the ranks as assistant principal, assistant superintendent, and eventually to the position of state superintendent for Virginia, and now owner of a company dedicated to family engagement. He currently travels the globe sharing best practice in family engagement that could result in increased academic achievement for all students. Through his life's work and research, Dr. Constantino discovered 5 simple principles of family engagement. So his principles are to create a school culture that engages every family, communicate effectively and build relationships, build family efficacy, engage every family in decision-making, and engage the greater community. Dr. Constantino recommends that our first step is to establish a school culture that invites family engagement. And we're talking about school culture, not family culture. When the school culture truly looks to engage every family, everyone is looking for ways to create opportunities for engagement. The questions I have for us to think about are, do we really want to engage every family? How does the word every make us feel? Does it feel like it's too big of an ask? Can we think of families that might be challenging to engage? The first step in addressing these families is to create a culture within the school where everybody is looking to engage every family. And this becomes really important. If we do not address the culture of family engagement in our schools, any attempt we use may be quickly thwarted. The first attempt at engagement that is met by an unwelcoming staff member can change the relationship between the family and the school. And then I like this quote by Peter Rucker, culture eats strategy for breakfast. And I use that because I want you to think in this way, and that's why we use Pac-Man as the idea of culture, because when we are talking about engaging families and changing culture of a school to engage families, it's really important that that is in place, because any strategy we roll out can quickly not be productive if people aren't on board, right? So if we have office staff members who don't believe engaging families is important, you can quickly see how those efforts are going to go when we start rolling out strategies to bring parents in. If every time they call the school, it's a negative experience, right? So it's really important for us that you consider, really addressing across the entire school that parent engagement, family engagement is hugely important to us. All right. Some ideas that could help build that culture to engage every family, including multilingual families and planning and carrying out school events and activities. Getting feedback from our families on their perception of your school. You can do that through surveys or through walkthroughs or through focus groups. The book, which is Engage Every Family, has resources and tools that you can use to help evaluate the culture of your school in regards to family engagement. Your door prizes include a link to Dr. Constantino's website, which you have to kind of sign into, but it's free. It gives you some resources there as well that you can use on evaluating the culture of your school around family engagement. It also, one of the things you could do is walk through your school with some of your multilingual families and talk about what makes them feel welcome and what things are a barrier to being welcome in the school. So now I'd like to give you an opportunity to think and answer these questions. What strategies or activities can you imagine that support creating a culture that engages every family? So if you have suggestions for us, we'd love for you to share them in the chat. We will be archiving the chat so you have access to these. Or the other question that you could respond to is, how could the Parent Caregiver Guide for ELD help you accomplish your plan to engage every family? And if you would like to either raise your hand. We can look for people who would like to speak, or please feel free to put your ideas in the chat.
I see Marielle's hand.
Awesome. Marielle, would you like to share?
I think I work in two different school systems, and sometimes I see some content area teachers that are not willing to work with multilingual students. And I think we need to do something, PDs, especially for content area teachers, to have a more open mind. And I think if we don't change that, it doesn't matter how hard we work, we can work. So I think we need to, as a DPI, need to do something to involve more content area teachers, having a more open mind, and we will solve a lot of problems. That's what I think we have to do, because there's a lot of teachers. In my previous school system, I remember if kids were speaking Spanish, it was the end of the world. And they were newcomers, so it was impossible that they are going to speak English, and they would get so upset, and they would call me, and it was like thing. And I think that's what we have to start doing: change the mindsets of some content area teachers that they don't want to do it. And if we do that, I think we're going to win the battles.
I appreciate what you're saying, and one of the things I would kind of highlight to you to think about, or for our group to think about, is NCDPI doesn't really is in a challenging place to change culture of schools, but that really starts with district as well as school leadership. And so I think that's a great place to start having those conversations. And something like Dr. Constantino's book, it might be a great place to start the conversation around what are we going to get? I mean, that's why we started the question, right? What do we get by engaging every family? And his first answer is greater student achievement. So I think it's really important that we involve our administrators, and we had a bunch of administrators in with us yesterday, and we have content teachers with us later in the week. So we're working on to bridge that. But in the end, it's, the culture of the school is largely set by leadership, and it's important that we start including them in the conversation.
Also, I have to add, looking at the teacher as we do, as we want teachers to look at parents who are not engaged in school, we want you as ESL teachers to look at content teachers. There's a good reason probably why they are doing X, Y, or Z. So respecting that there's a reason, a valid reason underneath that behavior, and then helping them self-discover, giving them genuine opportunities to be in relationship with our family so that they begin to self-discover that there's nothing to fear, or that this is not X, it's actually Y. So just mutual respect and modeling that to them would be really helpful in that situation.
And I see some great ideas around translation and making sure things go home in languages families understand as a regular business, as a regular day, as part of what we do as our business. Some great ideas around cultural exchanges, and that's a great way to bring people in as well, because that's less threatening. But I also think we want to be careful not just to live there, because we do need to bring people, really be having conversations. We need to have conscious conversations about is the culture we want one that engages every family, and when we say every, we mean every, right? And that can be set very clearly by the leadership. So just something to think about.
Do you have time for one more?
Sure.
We have Crystal with her hand raised.
Yes, I just kind of wanted to piggyback a little bit on the previous comments that were made. First of all, I love the comments that are in here as someone new to ESL. This is a wealth of knowledge, and I'm so glad that you guys are going to share the chat. But speaking in reference to teachers in PD, classroom teachers, speaking from the point of view of a classroom teacher, one thing that I didn't need only was just another great idea. We had so many great ideas, but it was the time to create things and things like that. But I've done PD before for my school for other things. And I always tried to give time if there was something that had to be created before you could implement, that they had time to do that. But I think one thing, sometimes a lot of the strategies that we, and I have found a few in my few months that we know would be beneficial to use in just a whole classroom setting. Is I hope I have the opportunity to give PD with like ready to use, so it can be stuck right in with, if my county's using into reading heavy curriculum, it's not an additional thing that a teacher has to prepare for her classroom, but something that can just kind of seamlessly just kind of fit with what she's already doing, but it does benefit our multilingual learners, and it also actually benefits our other students as well. So I'm just trying to have that mindset of what can I help provide support to our teachers who are teaching our multilingual learners in their classrooms as well, to offer some support.
Thank you. All right, so our second principle is what are the opportunities for meaningful two-way communication in our schools? In this principle, Constantino argues for intentionally creating an inviting environment where meaningful two-way dialogue is intentionally planned to build trust. Building trust is crucial for developing strong relationships that allow for meaningful engagement. Schools need to use multiple means to provide opportunities for families to engage. Of course, in our context, we must meaningfully plan to communicate across languages and cultures from an asset-based approach. So some of the suggestions they provide in the book are student cultural or interest surveys, a positive first contact or first phone call or meeting, no matter what. Effective use of translation resources and devices, which we discussed earlier, so I'm not going to go too deeply into. Using parents as volunteers and helpers, making sure they're visible and present. That has been a challenge for many of us with COVID, but maybe keep that in mind as we come back. And then when we have families together, spotlight talents and knowledge during school events. My notes are all around translating apps, which we kind of already had that discussion, so I'm going to skip to that. So what
just a quick one. A quick one on that bullet is finding out expertises of fathers or mothers or whoever's in the family, and actually bringing the expertise into the building was a big one that we got away from yesterday too.
So again, to connect to what we're doing is what strategies or activities can you imagine that support communicating effectively and developing relationships that really build trust with every ML family? And then is there ways we could use the parent caregiver guide for ELD to help accomplish that? Oh, I love that. Genevieve mentions that thanks to COVID, she has a great texting relationship with all of her parents and students.
Yes, a lot of our ESL teachers feel the same way, and even our content teachers. COVID did produce a lot of good things for the communication piece. Feel free to open a mic.
Well, being a virtual teacher, I communicate every day with my families whenever necessary and appropriate, and to answer any questions during office hours. And, calling and texting is like normal, and families actually appreciate that teacher is reaching out to us. So emailing, updating information on websites and, your classroom, Google Classroom and all that is normal stuff. But like personalizing education with them and helping them connect with you, that's what they appreciate, and helping the kids know what actually is happening in the classroom.
I was trying to see the participants and actually stop sharing.
I like that. Yeah, I liked that too. I knew you didn't do that accidentally. It was on purpose.
Sorry, folks.
Yeah.
I just was trying to make sure I wasn't missing any hands. All right. And just so you know, you're going to have time to talk about these in smaller groups real quickly. So you can just jot down your ideas and be prepared. So building family efficacy. Efficacy is the power to produce an effect. Building efficacy empowers families to improve learning in the home. Establishing instructional and curricular processes that are inclusive of families encourages them to enhance learning at home. So, in his original version of this book, Engage Every Family, Dr. Constantino referred to this principle as empowering families. In his updated version, he refers to it as building efficacy. He felt that some people interpreted empowerment as creating an image of making families militant or activists rather than building collaboration. So, this principle is focusing on building capacity within the family to support learning and meaningfully participate in the decision making and the educational environment. This was a key idea that was considered when developing the parent caregiver guide to the ELD standards. We wanted to give them opportunities to understand the decision making that was happening around their kids and be able to participate in that. So some suggested activities are parents and caregivers participate in and help develop students' learning plans and help monitor and assess progress. One of the things I would highlight with this is, in Title III, we're required to notify parents and kind of either, have them notify us if they do not want to participate, or it does not require that we meet with parents and have them part of the decision-making team, but that is something we could do if we had the time and situation where we could wanted to create better engagement. We could also provide trainings and school practices to help families take a proactive roles. I want to also highlight the specific needs that multilingual families may have around this area. There can be cultural considerations that really impact this. Some families have not had much interaction with formal education, and some families would not want to be seen as disrespecting educators or questioning the school authority. This is why the logic model principle of how this is developed focuses on building trust before we work on building efficacy, because it will be needed as we attempt to build efficacy. So again, we're going to go back to thinking about what strategies or activities can you imagine that would build efficacy for families engaging in their child's education? And how could parent or caregivers, how could the parent caregiver guide for ELD help you accomplish your plan? So if you have any suggestions, we'd love to see them in the chat.
And I'm sharing our email addresses so you can share your reflections with us. But there was also a question, Tim. Can't see it now. But please share your ideas in the chat because we are scanning it. I'm sharing the email. Tim, would you share yours? Because I don't have it memorized.
My email?
Yeah, just in the chat. Someone was asking.
Making sure I spell it correctly.
Someone did mention earlier about like ML family parent teacher organizations, or we're actually going to be doing that next year in our schools. We don't know what we're going to call them yet, but we've never had an intentional, we're meeting together for specific purposes in large numbers at our site. So we're definitely going to be starting that next school year in our county by school.
And Melinda, you have your hand up?
Yes. I just wanted to share, I was trying to type it, but it was a little lengthy. In one of my previous experiences, actually in another state, what you mentioned about parents really feeling like it's okay to have a voice and to question things and to input things in the school environment. And so we had a slight issue with some of the students not being used to the food and not wanting to eat it. So we kind of solved two birds with one stone by creating a club where moms could feel free to bring in fresh food that they cooked at home for their children once a month. And so these became the place where they built trust in the school, and families begin to share with one another across different experiences. And out of that came sort of a parent advocacy group.
Very good.
Oh, I love Lanny's idea of valuing parents' funds of knowledge through creating a class quilt of family stories. That's beautiful.
We've had several of our teachers post cultural walls, not a real quilt, but patches of artwork from their students doing a similar thing. And they see it when they walk into the school building.
So the fourth principle is to engage every family in decision making. The school takes an inclusive approach in decision making through an inclusive model that the school creates shared responsibility with families, community, students, and educators. So we want to create opportunities for families to lead and participate in school learning, consultation, planning, and events. So the school makes sure families and students have representation in relevant decision making. For multilingual learners, this could include development of their EL or ML plan. This could also be an opportunity to build inclusive environments that build efficacy for families. I would invite you to think, does your school leadership team look like the representation of the students in your school? Do we have multilingual families participating in the school leadership team? So those are some ideas that, and then families lead and participate in planning school events. We have leadership teams that are representative of the school's population and community organization that represent family interests and needs are resources and collaborators as we plan. So those are just some ideas of ways to do that. And as we talk about connecting to practice, again, the ideas are what strategies or activities can you imagine that could assist families in your school in collaborating and developing plans for their child's education? And how could the parent or caregiver guide for ELD help you accomplish that plan? And in the interest of to give you a few minutes more discussion time so you can share your ideas with each other, I'm going to move on to the fifth, which is to engage the fifth principle, which is to engage the greater school community. The school makes partnerships with individuals and organizations and work in community places to take on mentoring roles. This could be with opportunities for work-based learning or student internships. It could create opportunities for students to see people they relate to in different roles. Partnerships are also made with different learning institutions, other schools, community colleges, institutions of higher education, or other training providers. Schools look for the opportunities for creating adult learning and community development courses to be run within the school building. So this could look like creating and or advertising adult learning opportunities in the school or related to the school, engaging partnerships with other organizations and institutions, and to collaborate our community workforce in creative ways K-12. So I would like to mention, several years ago, we had the opportunity, we had space in a building that was kind of decommissioned. And we were able to put our Welcome Center into a space where we were also able to give space to community agencies to have their offices. So we had Central Latino had an office there. The Learning Resource Center, which supported children with learning differences, had a space there. Conflict Resolution Center had a space there. So we had all these different community agencies. The United Hmong Association had a space there, or that was their main office space. So we had all of these agencies around the place where our families were brought in to register so that they had access to these community agencies at the time. Sadly, as things go in a school system, we had to build a school at that site, and then we no longer had that space. But it also created a relationship with those agencies that still lasts. So that was just something that we have done in the past. I'd like you to think about what strategies or activities you can imagine that could help your school or district identify and engage community organizations that support your families. And how could the parent or caregiver guide for ELD help you accomplish your plan? So if you have ideas, and with that, I am going to move on, Alicia.
So now it is time for you to have some personal reflection time that you're going to take into a breakout session to share with others. So we're going to give you 3 minutes, and we want you to reflect on the questions that we started out. If you'll, open up your artifact document or make sure that that tab is open. So how have your answers from earlier today evolved or been confirmed by today's presentation? And just be prepared to share your reflections in a breakout group. So again, if you'll click to the next slide, Tim, you're just going to share at the under that post-reflection section, what do we receive if we're doing all the things that Dr. Constantino is encouraging us to do? What do we receive? What do families receive? What do they receive? And what are your new strategies, if any, for engaging every family? It's a time for you to reflect and brainstorm. And you can begin now. Tim and I will be reflecting with you.
Okay, I'm creating the breakout rooms. You will see a pop-up window.
We're
and
not breaking out yet.
notifications. Not yet? Okay.
Not yet. We're
Just
going
a
to give
minute.
them 3 minutes to
Alrighty.
reflect personally. Sorry, Sattli. Thank
You're
you.
fine.
Thanks.
All right, Alicia, are we ready to start as a finish up, kind of giving directions for breakout rooms?
If that was 3 minutes for you, I forgot to set my timer. I was just texting you that. I was so into the reflection. Sorry. So we're going to pretend like that was 3 minutes, and you can of course continue reflecting, but you're going to go to your breakout rooms. You're going to share your artifact reflections. If we engage every family, what do we receive? What do they receive? And what are your new strategies based on the 5 simple principles and your parent guide? Any ideas you hear, you can add to your artifact documents, so feel free to do that, and be prepared to share your ideas after your breakout group with the whole group. And Zattli, I'll turn it over to you.
Now it's for real.
Now it's for real, girl.
Okay, so you will see a notification that says join one of these groups that you have been assigned to. Maybe if you don't see the notification, minimize the main screen and you will see it hiding behind it. So hopefully everyone can get in. If not, we're going to help you once we assign the groups.
And I would encourage you, we have about 5 minutes for this, so I'd encourage everyone to take 30 or 40 seconds to share one idea and then let everybody, and then you can fill in with other ideas as we go.
And if you'll click again, Tim, you'll see a sign that will let you know how many seconds you have left at the end of the breakout session, and then it'll just kind of help you get back. So Thank you guys. Join your groups.
Okay, I see a lot of people are moving, transitioning to their breakout rooms. If you haven't seen the notification, if you minimize the window, you will see it. Or in the corner where you have the participants panel, you should see the breakout sessions tab as well. And I know Alicia and team will pop in the different sessions.
Right.
All right, who else is here? I see some are still here. If for some reason you cannot join the breakout session, just write some notes, and then when we all come back to the main room, you can share in the chat if you're not able to join one of those breakouts. Jamil.
Yeah, I think the families that have asked and really pushed things, it's like, well, this is how we have to
where they can get pamphlets and stuff from our local community college.
It's been in-person type conversations, not something that I could send.
Things about their kids, like health concerns, anxieties, all kinds of things going on in their lives that were impeding them from participating in school in the way that they normally would. So I just
we have to start by, I think the front office or the main office is a great place because people come in and they
different things. And the program we use now is called Parent Square, and it will translate for us the messages that are going out in Spanish. It'll also do it in other languages that we've discovered, like the Hmong is definitely not good, so we try to do that ourselves.
In my school, every week, my principal sends a Connect Ed message where he communicate with parents the activities the next week. So it's every week. We record that in English, but for the Japanese students that, we record that in English and Spanish. For Japanese students, I sent the same information in a Remind app so they can say it instead of hearing the message, because it's difficult.
I did.
I think you have everybody back.
All right. As you come back from your great breakout groups, we would love for you to take some time to share out. Feel free to add a comment or two in the chat box. We're not going to have time to raise mics because we're at the 3:00 mark. So I'm sorry we couldn't get you out of breakout sessions.
It was a little
We thought
bit.
you were going to be there for a long time.
But as we close, our purpose for today was to engage, to learn ways to engage every family. So we hope you feel like you had ample time to explore the Parent Caregiver Guide, to discover its contents and potential support in engaging every ML family. Also to reflect on Dr. Constantino's 5 simple principles and develop some new strategies, we hope, using the 5 principles and the Parent Caregiver Guide in combination. We hope you feel that you were successful at reaching those goals.
As we close our session today, we would love for you to complete the sentence frame as your ticket out and put it in the chat box. My first next step to empower and engage families will be blank because blank. We also want to remind you to join us at 3:30 for your office hours this afternoon. We hope we would We hope to be able to answer the remainder of your questions, and please email us, reach out for support as you return to your schools and continue in your work empowering, engaging multilingual families. It is really important for us because this is a new topic for us to really work on. We would greatly appreciate your professional development evaluation feedback. So if you wouldn't mind taking an opportunity to complete that, Sally will also put a link in the chat box. And then we do not want you to leave without collecting your virtual door prizes.
So we have a teaching tolerance free film kit that would be good for you to take back to your classrooms and schools. Also, Engage Every Child, Family, Teacher Every Day website from Dr. Constantino. There's some free art posters and downloads for educators from the National Gallery of Art. There is something that Sattli shared, a free download of family engagement core competencies from NAFSCE, a national organization. She wanted you guys to have access to that. And for you personally, let's call it a stress pack, would be 25 free food days you need to put on your calendar right now. Next month, I think it's free Slurpees from 7-Eleven and dress up like a cow for free food from Chick-fil-A. And last but not least, your template of a family engagement website that you can take back to your school, county level, or program department level. And we really have had a great time getting to know you guys. Thank you so much for being here today. If you could put your sentence ticket out in the chat box too, that would be great. We want to know what you're going to go back and do when you get back.
And thank you, Andrea
so
Gomez.
much.
I love that your first step is to talk with your administration. I think that's a super important step.
Yes. We heard in the breakout sessions, well, we have all these great ideas, but what if our administration or our county, you know, doesn't kind of have that same vision? Just keep working at it. And we're behind you. We're here to support you. Thank you so much. Great conversations today. Lots of collaboration. Chunking the guide. Yep. It's great. And Tim, I know we've officially stopped, but I did have one thought if anybody's listening, and that is, what do we receive and what do they receive? A happier school culture, thanks to you and Dr. Constantino, and with less fear for all. It just came up, and you did a great job, you and Dr. Constantino, in helping us achieve that, Tim. So thank you.
Thank you, my friend.